If you've been following Elite Dangerous lately, you probably noticed something interesting. A brand new combat ship has appeared and immediately sparks debate across the community. Some pilots say it's incredibly powerful, others say it's too fragile to compete with classic fighters. And some players are still trying to figure out whether it's actually worth buying right now. Today we're talking about the Kestrel Mk II, a small combat ship developed by Core Dynamics. And in this video I'm going to show a combat build that actually works, explain how the ship performs in battle, and talk about whether this fighter is truly worth flying. So let's start with the basics. First, look at the Kestrel Mk II. The Kestrel Mk II is a purpose-built combat fighter designed for speed, agility, and aggressive dogfighting. It was developed by Core Dynamics for the Federal Navy, and it's intended to eventually replace other fighters like the famous Vulture. From the moment you look at the ship, its design philosophy becomes obvious. The Kestrel Mk II sacrifices internal space, heavy armor, multi-role flexibility in exchange for something very specific: extreme maneuverability. And when you look at the numbers, that design choice becomes clear. The ship has top speed 278 meters per second, boost speed 342 meters per second, maneuverability rating 8. That makes it one of the most agile ships currently available in the game. In combat, agility can be just as important as firepower. If you can stay behind your opponent and avoid incoming fire, you don't need that heavy armor in the galaxy. Now let's talk about the weapons. Despite its small size, the Kestrel Mk II carries an impressive set of hardpoints. It has 2 small hardpoints, 3 large hardpoints, 4 utility mounts. That's an extremely aggressive layout for a small fighter. In this build, the ship is equipped with 2 small beam lasers and 3 large multi-cannons. This combination is simple, effective, and perfect for PvE combat. Here's why. Beam lasers are excellent for stripping shields quickly. Multi-cannons, on the other hand, are incredibly effective against hull once shields drop. So the basic combat strategy becomes very straightforward. Use beam lasers to break enemy shields, switch to multi-cannons to shred the hull. It's a classic combination that works extremely well in bounty hunting and combat zones. Before we look deeper into the build, it's worth understanding the core characteristic of the ship. The Kestrel Mk II has hull mass of 190 tons and base armor rating of 126, which means it's not the toughest ships around. However, the shield strength is surprisingly solid for a ship of its size, sitting at 293 megajoules by default. That means with the right setup, the ship can survive longer than you might expect. But once the fight starts, everything changes. Utilities: chaff launcher, heatsink launcher, and 2 shield boosters, giving you the edge against tracking weapons and sustained fire. Core internals: almost everything is A-rated, pushing this ship to its absolute limits in power, speed, and combat efficiency. Optional internals: here we have Biowave shield generator combined with multiple hull and module reinforcement packages, meaning even when shields drop, you'll still in the fight. And if you want to try this exact setup yourself, I put a full Coriolis link in the description so you can copy the build directly. Another important detail is that the ship is STO optimized, meaning it can take advantage of Supercruise overcharge technology. This makes it capable of fast instant travel and quick repositioning during missions. But it's important to understand something here. Kestrel Mk II is not a multi-role ship. It's not designed for trading, mining, exploration. This is a pure combat platform. If you're looking for flexibility, you might be better off flying something like the Python. But if your goal is dogfighting, the Kestrel Mk II becomes much more interesting. The ship has a fairly limited set of optional internals compartments. These include 1 class 5 slot, 2 class 4 slots, 1 class 3 slot, 3 class 2 slots, 1 class 1 slot. One of the Class 4 compartments is reserved for military modules, which is perfect for defensive upgrades. The limited internal space again reinforced the ship's role. This is a lightweight combat interceptor, not a cargo hauler. Another interesting detail about the Kestrel Mk II is that it includes two exclusive modules. These are Mk II maneuvering thrusters and Plasma Shock Accelerator Mk II. The Plasma Shock Accelerator functions somewhat like a shock cannon, but with a larger ammunition reserve and automatic fire. However, for this particular build, we are focusing on something simpler and more reliable: beam lasers and multi-cannons. Sometimes the most effective builds are also the simplest. Let's talk about how this loadout performs in real combat. The moment you engage an enemy ship, the Kestrel Mk II agility becomes immediately noticeable. Because of the extremely tight turning radius, you can often stay directly behind your opponent. This is especially useful against larger ships like the Anaconda. Large ships struggle to track fast fighters, and the Kestrel can easily stay outside their primary firing arcs. That's where the beam laser come into play. With constant pressure of the enemy shields, you can break defenses quickly. Once the shields collapse, the three large multi-cannons take over. And this is where things get fun. Three large multi-cannons deliver a huge amount of sustained damage, tearing through hull armor extremely quickly. Against medium and small ships, fights can end surprisingly fast. Now, there is one downside to having such extreme maneuverability. Some players have noticed that the ship can almost be too agile. When boosting and turning aggressively, target tracking can actually become difficult. This ship moves so quickly that maintaining weapon alignment requires practice. But once you get used to the handling, it becomes one of the most satisfying fighters to fly. You feel like you're piloting a true interceptor. So, how does the Kestrel Mk II perform in conflict zones? Overall, surprisingly well. Thanks to its agility and strong shields, it can survive intense engagements as long as the pilot manages positioning carefully. The key is to avoid getting surrounded. Instead, focus on isolated targets, damaged enemies, ships already engaged by allies. Use the Kestrel speed to strike quickly and then reposition. This hit and run style works extremely well. Let's summarize the ship's biggest advantages. First, maneuverability. It is currently one of the most agile ships in the game. Second, weapon hardpoints. 3 large hardpoints on a small fighter is extremely impressive. Finally, the armor itself isn't particularly strong. If your shields collapse and you stay in a dangerous position too long, the hull can disappear quickly. Is it better than the Vulture? This is a question many pilots are asking. Is the Kestrel Mk II actually better than the Vulture? The answer depends on your playstyle. The Vulture is heavier and slightly more durable, but the Kestrel Mk II is faster, more agile. Third, shield strength. For a ship of its size, the shields are surprisingly durable. Combine these factors create a fighter that excels in dogfighting scenarios. Weaknesses. Of course, no ship is perfect. The Kestrel Mk II has some clear limitations. The most obvious one is internal space. You simply don't have room for many options modules. Another limitation is the jump range, which sits at just over 13 light years unladen. This means the ship isn't ideal for long distances travel. In skilled hands, the Kestrel can absolutely compete with and sometimes outperform the Vulture. So, is the Kestrel Mk II worth flying? If you enjoy fast, aggressive dogfighting, the answer is absolutely yes. This ship was clearly designed for pilots who want to stay constantly in motion, waving around enemies and striking from advantageous positions. With the right loadout like the one we use today, with 2 small beam lasers and 3 large multi-cannons, it becomes a deadly little fighter. It's not a general purpose ship, it's not a cargo hauler, but as a dedicated combat interceptor, the Kestrel Mk II is extremely fun to fly. and in the hands of a skilled pilot it can be devastating. But that's just my experience with the Kestrel Mk II so far. Now I'm curious about your opinion. Do you think this ship eventually replaced the Vulture as the dominant small fighter? Or is just another experimental design that won't stand the test of time? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more combat builds and ship reviews from Elite Dangerous, consider subscribing to the channel. Fly safe, commanders, and I'll see you in the black.